Many observers of the current conflict tend to view the challenge of Hamas as a Jewish problem. It is a global problem that affects everyday life of every faith, including Theo Caldwell. Few people know this better than Theo, an author, columnist, broadcaster, and investment advisor who has not only been to Israel, but visited the country during Operation Cast Lead, the last Israeli offensive against Hamas. Please help for a warm welcome to Theo Caldwell.
I'll keep this brief, as I am by far the least qualified person that you're going to hear from. I have no special expertise like David Frum. I have no official portfolio like Mr. Moore or the Consul General. To tell you the truth, I am no more than half Jewish. And before you ask, the good half. In point of fact, I'm just some guy with a big mouth who supports the state of Israel, and it turns out we have a lot of those too, so I really will keep this short. Now, I was invited to make some remarks tonight. As I commenced to prepare, I thought of three questions that I wanted to address. What's happening? Why does it matter? What can we do about it? What's happening? Why does it matter? And what can we do about it? What's happening? Let's start with the basics. About 2 weeks ago, Hamas began firing rockets from Gaza into Israel. Israel has responded. International political leaders have, as usual, called on both sides to settle down, as though it were our idea that this happened in the first place. And the media have responded, as usual, documenting the casualties on both sides and blaming them all on Israel. Now, there is considerable contemplation as to just why Hamas chose to pick this fight now, including that perhaps they want to demonstrate their rocket capacity and resolve to their rivals and their allies. I just say about that, if Hamas wants to show its strength for the edification of Fatah or Hezbollah or the Muslim Brotherhood or Iran or whatever else, why don't they just fire rockets at each other and leave us out of it? But nobody asked me. As for Israel, I know this is part of a dynamic, as has been said earlier, that people in peaceful lands don't always get. We cannot relate in the larger context. Israel is surrounded every day by people who hate their guts and want to kill them. The closest I get that is having been at the New York Stock Exchange. I don't know. But why is it important? Why is this important? Why are you all, thousands of you here tonight? I think it's because we bang on about freedom a lot in this part of the world. We talk about it all the time, freedom this, freedom that. A lot of it's just so much chin music. It's all relative. But for us, there's no immediate, external, doorstep threat to our liberty and our existence. But here's Israel. It's an outpost of freedom among brutal tyrannies and hostile powers facing constant and existential threats. What good are we here? Do we mean what we say? Do we even understand what freedom is? As anything besides a slogan if we cannot speak up in unequivocal terms at times like this? That's why it's important. And that leads to my third and final question. What can we do about it? Most of us do not have a megaphone like David Frum or a portfolio like Minister Moore. And most of us live our lives between conversations, moment to moment, doing the best we can with what and whom we encounter. And as Jessica pointed out, what we encounter when it comes to Israel on a daily basis can be pretty ugly. Talking about Israel with people is like talking about politics in general. People cram all their frustrations from elsewhere of their lives into that one topic, and if you cross one of their tripwires, whammo, they'll let you have it. Now, I do not believe it makes you an anti-Semite to refer to Israel as an occupier. It might make you an idiot, but it does not necessarily make you an anti-Semite. I say that and I joke about it. We shouldn't talk about it necessarily those ways. What we must do, what we can do, is be patient with people, patient with each other. And I know that those opposed to us, those who don't agree with us, they're not patient with us, but that's not our problem. That's not under our purview. We cannot help what other people do. The reality is most people don't know anything about anything. They learn hatred phonetically. They learn the sounds and phrases they're supposed to mimic to identify the object they are instructed to despise, but common hatred can rarely withstand scrutiny. And day to day, we living here must respond to those who despise us with patience, forbearance, and the truth. I don't want to put anyone off by being partisan. I know that's not what we're going to do here. I'll leave most of that to the big kids anyway. But I'd like to say this. On a local basis, when it comes to local interactions, politics and culture in this part of the world, it would be wise, I believe, for my Jewish friends to cotton on to who their true friends really are. I think you will find some of the staunchest supporters of the Jewish people and of Israel in the Conservative Party here in Canada and in the Republican Party in the United States. Now, as was mentioned, I was in Israel. We were in Israel in 2009 with Judy Zelkovitz and the Canada-Israel Committee. And I was born 12 days before the Yom Kippur War began in 1973. I defer to those of you who were there, some of you may have served in that conflict, to consider how that might have shaken out if Republican President Richard Nixon had not sent the Sixth Fleet into the Mediterranean to support Israel during that conflict. No one in that party or in the Conservative Party of Canada will rise to power without making support for Israel a sine qua non. But it's not just about politics. It's a cultural matter. And those of us who are traditional people, who understand the goodness, the aspiration to freedom and humanity, and the light of hope against hope that Israel represents, realize how important this is. I would urge my Jewish friends, especially at times like this, not to disdain, but to embrace the freely offered friendship of every denomination of the Christian faith. I'm Presbyterian, which is Christian but Scottish, and I can tell you that to us this is very important. You don't need to convert, you don't need to celebrate Christmas, you don't need to watch Benny Hinn, but at least remember this. When we go to church, and I do, we come together gratefully and gladly to worship a Jew. Not all of you mind, just one in particular, but even so. It is written on our hearts to love and support Israel and the Jewish people. No matter how messed up you may think we are, and believe me, you have no idea, please just accept that. It is part of who we are to stand with Israel, and we do. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Theo, and clearly your family has both better halves.